200 years ago, our founding fathers drafted our nation's Constitution. It is the basis of many of our ideals, laws, and morals today. One of the things that we find most especially important in our Constitution is the process of electing our president. It is unique only to our country. It is hard to believe that a system that has seemed to work very well for over 200 years needs to be changed. If you haven't guessed by now, I'm talking about the Electoral College, and I'm saying that there are some flaws with the election of our president, that the Electoral College must be changed. I debated this in U.S. government, and I've done more internet research to support this position and to tell you all why I support this position. I know that many of you have voted and been part of the electoral system. I'm too young to vote, at least for another few weeks, but despite the flaws I see with this system, I'm very excited to vote. I know that by now you are all probably thinking of a common expression. If it isn't broken, don't fix it, or maybe more accurately, dealing with politics, better the devil you know than the one you don't. But today, I'm here to tell you that there are many reasons that the Electoral College has to be changed. The popular vote is not guaranteed. In the campaign, candidates can cater to swing states or other strategic states. The weight of the vote varies from state to state, and the catering to swing states could also affect decisions in the winning candidate's first term, and if there is no majority reached in the Electoral College, it could lead to a long process for breaking the tie. By the end of my speech, I hope you will at least consider some of these issues. Jimmy Sawney of HuffingtonPost.com writes that the Electoral College is a sort of winner-take-all system. For example, California has 53 electoral votes, while Mississippi only has 6. A small majority in California would gain 53 electoral votes for the winning candidate. However, a large majority in Mississippi would only gain 6 votes for the winning candidate. This would theoretically work if all states supported the same candidate or if the opposition balanced out, but this obviously is not always the case. D'Angelo Gore of USAtoday.com tells us about 4 times that the president has not won the popular vote in 1824, 1876, 1888, and 2000, respectively, with John Quincy Adams, Rutherford B. Hayes, Benjamin Harrison, and George W. Bush. In this article, because it was published before we knew the results of the most recent election, does not take into account that President Trump did not win the popular vote, only the Electoral College vote. Now you know the popular vote doesn't win. I will now tell you why some states may be favored in the campaign process or completely overlooked. In comparing an article by Candace Smith and Liz Kreutz of abcnewsgo.com and a map of USA Today, many of the campaign rallies from both candidates were held either in swing states or other strategic states. I've talked about swing states a lot, and I'm sure you all know what a swing state is, but just to review, a swing state is a state that consistently does not vote either Democrat or Republican. And both candidates spent the most time in and spent the most ads on the state of Florida. Why? Florida is a strategic swing state that has a fair amount of electoral votes. Neither candidate visited Idaho, Wyoming, Alaska, or Hawaii. Some of these states are getting all the attention and some are getting ignored. Now I will tell you how your vote might count more in one state than in another. Denise Liu of the Washington Post says that a vote in Wyoming counts almost 4 times more than it does in California. The reason for this is that in California, there is 1 electoral vote for every 712,000 people. In Wyoming, there is 1 electoral vote for every 195,000 people. This means that the vast population of California is actually underrepresented. Now, you all know that all of a state's population doesn't vote, but consider those who are eligible to vote and then those who do. In this method, Texas and Georgia, their voters are overrepresented despite their populations being underrepresented. 64% of the citizens of the state of Texas vote. That's the lowest percentage in the country. But Texas has 38 electoral votes, the second most. Now that I brought your attention to how states could get special attention during the campaign or completely ignored or even misrepresented, I will now tell you how this favoritism may extend to a president's first term. It stands to reason that a president in the first term is simply a candidate for re-election in the second. Eric Black of MinPost.com posts a hypothetical situation, but it is a very valid situation worth considering. We have long since reestablished relations with former communist countries, especially in the former Soviet Union, But we only very recently reestablished diplomatic relations with Cuba. Why? Eric Black poses that it might have something to do with Cuba's distance from Florida, and therefore Florida's voters' opinions on our relations with Cuba. Appeasing Florida voters would be a great way to secure the next election. This is in no way confirmed, but it is a valid and frightening point. Now, after I've told you about potential favoritism and misrepresentation, I will tell you about the process of a tie or no majority in the Electoral College. Holly Munson of ConstitutionCenter.org explains the process of no majority in the Electoral College. Eventually, key word, eventually, the vote would get to Congress, but first, results would have to be confirmed, and then there's also the possibility for recount of votes and contested elections. All of this happened in the 2000 Gore versus Bush election. If there is no winner after this process, the vote goes to the House and the Senate. The House will choose the president, and the Senate will choose the vice president. In the House, each state, not each representative, each state, for example, although Mississippi has 6 representatives in the Electoral College, we would not receive 6 votes, only 1. In the Senate, each senator receives 1 vote. This could also lead to the vice president and the president being from different political parties. The last example of this happening was in 1796. Now that I have told you all of the issues with the Electoral College that me and many other people have found, I will now conclude this speech. I have told you the many reasons that the Electoral College must be changed. It is inadequate at delivering the will of the people. It shows favoritism to swing states during campaigns. It misrepresents voters, and favoritism could continue into the president's first term, and the process of election, if the Electoral College doesn't work like it's supposed to, is a long and complicated process. I know that this system has seemed to work well for over 200 years, but it is time to consider a change. Thank you for your time and attention.